And here we are for the finale of the Kenobi discussion. And I'm joined by Megan, as she was in the first episode as well. And then also Chris, who's joining us once again. So, Chris, obviously we spoke, I can't remember what episode it was. Was it it confuses me because the first 2 episodes were in one, so we've done 5 discussion episodes.
It would have been the third episode, yeah.
Third episode, right. So, Kenobi for you, just as a wrap-up, obviously, hello there, a wrap-up of how you felt about the series up to before watching it today.
Yeah. So I think there's been some great moments. Ewan McGregor's been excellent, I thought. Very good. Some of I think I joked about it in the 3rd episode, but some of the, the way he was just sort of pedestrianised running after Princess Leia, and she's like, don't go there. Oh, no, you've run into stormtroopers, like ridiculous geriatric stuff. But the actual storytelling was great. That episode we covered was the Darth Vader one when he dragged, the villagers along the floor and everything. The only criticism was the music. And I know you were laughing, Mike, because obviously me and you love Star Wars. We love Star Wars, Spider-Man, yep. And the Miles Morales games. But the original Spider-Man music of the PS4, PS5 version is definitely similar to this, because Jordan come down and she's played both games. She's been rerunning them again. She loves them. And I said to her, don't you think this sounds like Star Wars? And she went, nope. I went, it does. And I kept playing the start of Kenobi. It's only me. Like you said, Mike, I'm just obsessed with them games. So it's probably just me. But no, I've enjoyed it. I thought a lot of criticism was of the 4th episode where they went underwater and everything, which I didn't mind, to be honest. I think it was the 4th episode. I think a lot of them were like, it's just one of them filler episodes. And it's interesting with Star Wars, like The Mandalorian, they don't really give a shit on a time. They just pick however long it takes. Because I remember some of the earlier Mandalorian ones, I think one of the episodes was about 20 odd minutes or something, so I like that. But then also I was thinking, and today's episode runs at 40 something minutes, 42, 43 minutes, whatever it is, roughly, I'm guessing. But so I was thinking, it's got to be longer. But I think as a whole, I've enjoyed it. It's definitely better than Boba Fett, other than the Mandalorian middle section for series 4, whatever it is. But I think the nostalgia of knowing the characters is what's kept me engaged, and I think it's filmed really well. And yeah, it just hits more than anything. I've been really impressed with it, to be honest, Mike. Even though I listened to you and Ben last week, and there's some great criticism of the show, quite rightly. There's stuff that, me, I will absolutely nail something to the cross and lay into it. But I didn't feel, because of being an old school Star Wars fan, I don't want to, even though that's my usual way. That's usually what I do. I've just enjoyed watching it, I must admit.
Yeah, I mean, although I will address, because I realised in the last episode I was very critical of Kenobi, and although a lot of the criticisms I do stand by to a degree, I still really, really enjoyed it, and I want to clarify to everyone, I did really enjoy the last episode. I've enjoyed the whole series. I thought it's been a really, really good, really strong series. Although, it's not perfect. There are, as you kind of pointed out, there are some silly moments that occurred in it. The coat in the 4th episode, I think it was the worst part. When he was hiding. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Underneath, yeah, she's under the coat.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just a bit like, that didn't seem very well thought out. Like a lot of other elements of the episode were really cool, but, and I'm like you, I said this on a podcast I recorded on Monday that is going to be released, I think on Sunday, so it'll be a few days after this on Genuine Chit-Chat. The thing is with Star Wars, I find, is that even the content that's okay still means something to me, because it adds to the universe. If you go to the cinema and you watch a 2-hour crap film, you've just wasted 2 hours. If I watch 2 hours of Star Wars I'm not overly fond on, it still adds to the lore, which I quite enjoy. But Megan, before we delve into this episode, what did you think? Because obviously you were on the first episode and then also the episode with Chris again, weren't you? You guys just can't get enough of each other. You're each other's spirit animal after the Spider-Man 3 thing. So, which Megan and you both reference separately to each other, which is delightful. I find it funny that, Megan, you are almost like an amalgamation of Rhea and Chris put together. That seems to be what you're sort of...
I am one and I am everyone.
Yes, you are. So what did you think of Kenobi, the first 5 episodes or so?
Yeah, I've liked them.
What do you think of them? Yeah. Okay, cool. Moving on.
They're fine.
Well, how do you think they compare to the other live-action Star Wars we've seen so far? So Mando and Boba Fett.
I think it's better than Boba Fett, but I don't think it's good as good as Mandalorian. I think there are quite a few things in this that I just find a bit naff. Is the word that I'll use. I'm not a huge fan of Reva as a character. I think she's kind of just there as a plot filler.
Yeah.
to make it so that Darth Vader can find Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah.
Like, her character arc is just a bit meh, I find.
Yeah.
But I have enjoyed it. It's more Leia stuff than I was anticipating. Like, I even said, I think in the third recording that we did, the third episode, that I hoped it wouldn't just all be about Leia.
Yeah.
And it kind of was, but kind of wasn't at the same time.
Yeah.
But I've enjoyed it, but I don't think it's as good as Mandalorian.
Okay. Fair point.
That's a great point. I think as well, sorry, and I should have said this, Mike, before you do your bit, was Reva, I agree. I think the one thing I get from watching this show is, other than the Emperor, everyone can be a goodie or a baddie, and anyone who's bad, no matter how bad they are, can be redeemable. You know, we see it with Kylo Ren, Darth Vader, Reva. Obviously, it was a bit of a ploy with her, which I must admit that bit did get me when it was episode 5, and all of a sudden Obi-Wan's like, oh, hang on. Oh no, you're hunting. I'm like, where the fuck has this come from? You know, so I did, you know what I mean? Like, it reminded me of the PS2 game, The Getaway, where they were driving around London like Grand Theft Auto. What they used to do, I've used to play it, Mike and Megan, was when you started getting killed and the game was glitched to fuck, like it was a really badly glitched game, but it was like Grand Theft Auto. You'd stand against the wall and go, oh, and he's called Hammond, and he'd be like, Hammond, you okay? And all of a sudden he'd redeem himself. And it was like that with Obi-Wan. It was like when he had a moment of like, oh, I'm an old man, I'm fucked. He'd go, oh, right, okay, I'm back in the game, and I'm sort of redeeming myself. And that's when we had these visions. So that bit was silly. And I think you're right. The whole Reva thing was, she was good at the end of episode 5, or we thought so. And then she went full on, like what happened with Kylo Ren when he was in with Rey, when he killed Snoke and everything. Yeah. And then you think he's going to be good, and then he just goes after Luke Skywalker and everyone. You know, it's sort of, it's a bit wishy-washy. So yeah, that's a great point, Megan, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree. I think Reva, the actress who played Reva, the actress who played Reva, Moses Ingram, I think she did a great job. I just think the character itself is just kind of boring.
It's just a bland character. Like, I said this to Mike as well, like, when in this episode, like, I don't really want to jump ahead and...
No, do it. It's going to be all over, so do it.
But, like, when Vader and Obi-Wan have their, like, big fight in this episode, I was like... Well, part of me is like, there's nothing to gain from it, because I know that they're both going to survive. Like, like there's loads of characters that I know that it's unconsequential. Is that the word? Inconsequential. Yeah. I know that nothing bad is going to happen to these people because there's episodes 4, 5, and 6. Like, there's all of these future films.
Yeah.
So, like, I know that it's a prequel, and I know that it's kind of like for the fans and being like, oh, this is what Obi-Wan was doing and during that time period. But it's also kind of like, well, I know that nothing bad is going to happen in this scenario, as great as this like lightsaber battle is.
No, Megan, I'm sorry, Mike, 'cause I know you've not spoke. I'm so sorry.
Go ahead. No, please.
I actually really agree with that, because the payoff was there. Obi-Wan, take his fucking head off, Highlander style. Just take him out of the game. I'm going to be controversial now, Mike and Megan. I'm going to really, this is me being a dick as usual, but Darth Vader, one of the greatest baddies ever. Me growing up, he was one of the ultimate baddies. He was parodied in so many things, but he was up there for me growing up as a kid. It was like Freddy Krueger, even the Terminator, the first Terminator, Arnie and everything. Really, really baddie. But, you know, to be honest, he's a pretty shit bad guy, because Obi-Wan does him 2-0, and then obviously Obi-Wan lets him kill him in A New Hope, and just goes, you know, I will become more powerful than you'd ever think, and stands there and does the old praying thing and dies. He doesn't really kill anyone. He's a schoolyard bully, and when he comes up against anyone who's actually any cop, like Luke, he gets taken out anyway. So I was a bit controversial with that, Mike, because I know you've read all the stuff and these different things, what he does and all that. But I was sort of thinking at the end of it, thinking, oh, this is shit, really. You know, like I know Obi-Wan takes him on at the Revenge of the Sith and has him Anakin and all that. This should have been when Darth Vader just absolutely nails Obi-Wan into hiding, but he didn't. He just sort of, I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I was smiling from ear to ear. The fight scene was amazing, but I was sort of like thinking, Darth Vader's just shit, really, isn't it? Let's be honest. He's pretty shit, to be honest. But anyway, that's how I felt at the end of it. I was gutted, to be honest, a little bit.
I think I agree. He is kind of shit, but I guess it's the fact that it's the whole, like, oh, there's conflict within you. Like,
yes.
There's so much conflict in him that he can't actually, like, just nail a fucking battle against someone that he doesn't have some, like, personal connection to.
Yeah. Well, Anakin's very passionate, isn't he? And he's very passion driven. So unless he's hating the person, Obi-Wan, it's one of those things. I get what you're saying, Chris. Obviously with this show, they had to nail the whole, when I last encountered you, I was you were the master or something and I was the learner or something. Yeah. That's the dialogue exchange in A New Hope. And that was one of the big questions of if Vader and Kenobi are going to fight again, Kenobi has to win because otherwise that line makes no sense. Or Kenobi has to kind of fake his own death in a very clever way. And so it was one of those things where, and this is my problem with prequels, I really enjoyed Kenobi. I thought it was a lot of fun, really cool. And contrary to what I said in the last episode, this episode really nailed a lot of things. There's a few parts I would tweak. I don't think this is the perfect show, but I think this suffers from a little bit what the Clone Wars series does. Obviously, Chris, you haven't really watched, is the Clone Wars series is set between episodes 2 and 3. So the vast majority of the characters, you know exactly what's going to happen to them, bar like 2 of them you don't know, or you wouldn't know at the time of watching that. Now you do. And then there's the show Star Wars Rebels, which is a completely whole new cast. No one is in any of the movies, no one's in anything else. It's just these characters set a few years before New Hope. And for me, Rebels was always better in a vast majority of reasons, loads of reasons, but one of the main ones was you don't have Obi-Wan and Anakin in it. You don't know what happens to them. You don't get to see what this is. And that's the problem with any kind of prequels and things, as you've both said. Like when you've got the Reva fight with Owen and Beru, the uncle and auntie, you're like, well, as Megan said before it started, she was like, well, she can't do any real damage because they're both okay. They've both got their limbs intact. So it is one of those things that's a bit shallow, and it's like, I love Star Wars. I'm glad they did Obi-Wan. They're doing the Andor series soon, in August, which I'm interested by. But the titular character, Andor, we know how he dies because we saw it in Rogue One. Mon Mothma, Bail Organa, they're going to appear in it. But then anyone else who appears, it's kind of that thing where it's like, well, they're not in the other stuff, so they're probably going to die at some point. And Star Wars has this problem where, at the moment, because almost everything is set within the Skywalker saga, even books and comics, the vast majority are, it's just the High Republic is the only stuff that isn't. Almost every character they touch, there's no stakes. So they have to try and develop more things. I think the show is meant to be about, Kenobi and Vader. How Vader was 10 years after and how he hadn't really changed much and how Kenobi had changed and that sort of stuff. And I get that. But it was a lot about Leia and it was a lot about Reva when it was just, unfortunately, as Megan put it, she was really just a plot device. She was just they're like, we have to have a thing here to make Kenobi get off Tatooine, but we can't have it being Vader because then he'd know to go there. So we need someone. So it's like, who could we choose?
It's also just her character development just flips very, very quickly. It kind of makes me think, like, in an opposite way of Daenerys Targaryen and how quickly she went fucking batshit crazy and destroyed and set loads of people on fire.
The dragons,
Yeah, except this is the opposite. Like, she goes to go and kill Luke, and then she's suddenly, like, Hagrid bringing Harry Potter in at the end of the Deathly Hallows, like, bringing him in, pretending he's dead, and then it's like, oh, psych, no, he's not, obviously, because he's in A New Hope. It's just like there was no switch, apart from her having some, like, flashbacks or seeing herself in the perspective of Luke.
Yeah.
There was no real reason as to why she turned.
Yeah, I liked her seeing herself in that, but it was that kind of point where it does make you question. You're like, how far is she? Like, my question the whole time was, why is she even going after Luke now? What's the point?
Yes.
Like, I felt like the idea
I think because
was,
she wants to get back. Well, I suppose she wants to get back at Anakin, but Anakin doesn't care because he's dead.
Well, Anakin doesn't know. Well, Anakin's dead in air quotes. Well, Anakin doesn't even know. So it's like, what? Yeah. The theory, I thought, she's going to capture Luke, take him to Vader, but obviously we know that won't work out. So I thought, Obi-Wan's going to kill her. That's going to be, he's going to learn from his mistakes. He should have killed Anakin. But then, well, as you said, Chris, we see him fight Vader and then he doesn't kill him. And you're like, I know, unfortunately, he couldn't for the plot, but what I was hoping for is he thinks he kills Vader and then topples him, kind of buries him alive, whatever, like Vader did to him. And then he tries to sense him through the Force or something and can't sense him anymore and then leaves. Instead, it's just like, well, you're almost dead. But last time I left you, you were literally on fire, falling into lava, and you somehow survived that. So just denting your armor a few times and cutting your mask off.
And they also did the lame yell as well. He was like, Obi-Wan!
Yeah. But, I mean, there's a lot of parts of this, but shall we, vaguely in the story. So you've got the Tatooine stuff, you've got Luke being there and Owen and whatnot, and then you've got Obi-Wan, Leia and co on the ship pursued by Darth Vader. The start of it, I thought the first 10-15 minutes, I was like, this is alright.
Yeah.
But it's taking a while, but I thought once Obi-Wan and Anakin started fighting, as you said, Chris, I absolutely loved it. I thought it was amazing. Yeah. I thought the dialogue was clever. Although whenever we do these discussion shows, like I'm a massive Star Wars fan, obviously, but I seem to just critique things constantly because I love so much about this. But my issue a little bit with Obi-Wan in this, I know that the plot was kind of showing him reconnecting to the Force to some degree, but it felt a little bit quick. It felt like he was like, oh, he lost against Vader in the third episode, and it was one of the highlights, I think, of probably all Star Wars. It was so cool, and he got destroyed. And you think, okay, he's going to build himself up again, and then it was like, oh, he invaded the Inquisitor's fortress, and then he used his Force powers a bit, and then he didn't do a huge amount in the last episode. That much, he fought off a couple of stormtroopers, deflecting a few things, and then suddenly he was so powerful, he could lift up all those rocks, barely moving, and fling them all at Vader and force pushing Vader, and it was cool to watch. But you're like, you seem more powerful than you were in Revenge of the Sith, and you fought Vader minutes ago, or days ago, and you got absolutely destroyed. And there wasn't like in The Force Awakens when you get Rey fighting Kylo Ren, she doesn't know about the Force really. Then it all clicks with her and everything makes sense. And as he's talking to her saying, I can show you the way you use the Force, she's like, the thing. And you see it in her eyes, the music goes, she's like, oh, I need to listen to my instincts, I need to go for it. Then she goes and she doesn't ever fall back from that. Kenobi was really powerful, then he wasn't, and then he just kind of was again. And then he absolutely decimates Vader. And you're like, this, do you know what I mean? Like a bit of a jump.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think Megan's right with how I felt with some of the characters and about this whole thing was the fight. I did love it. But what's interesting is if you watch a film, and Dave kept mentioning, and he's actually watching it as we speak, he's been texting me before saying, I'm halfway through, and I'm like, well, I'm about to record with Mike. All day I've been minding him, please watch it. He has got a job, but I'm just like, forget work. You've got to watch it. So, and I'd watched it quite early today. But I think you're right, is because the things with Reva, obviously there's going to be some sort of show, I presume, because she isn't in A New Hope. There's no mention of her at all in any of the movies. So there's either going to be a show and she does get killed, or we just never talk about her again, because it just seemed a big investment in a character that was so bad and then became sort of good in some respects. But we all know as well, anybody who's from the dark side and comes back to the light, they are not really redeemable. So they're probably going to take one for the team at some point, because if they've killed and decimated people, which I presume she has, then there will be a payoff somewhere. Whether she might, I don't know, she may end up in one of the other shows, I don't know. But
or maybe.
Yeah. So she might get taken out. But I think Megan's right. Is like, and like you said about Aunt Rue and all that, they were just like farmers. And obviously it's ridiculous. Luke Skywalker's in the most remote thing in the desert anyway. You know, like you're trying to hide the son of Darth Vader, and he's hidden in this most remote place that he could have got killed at any point, you know, when he's growing up and stuff. And they become, I know she obviously, that thing was when Reva gets taken out by Darth Vader, and you think, why didn't he kill her? He saw it coming. He stabs her with the lightsaber. You know, so it's like, well, again, she's been left to basically get back, not to her best, but the one way to get over being struck by a lightsaber is just to put a bit of cloth around your stomach. And obviously that saves you straight away. And she's up and walking around. It really is, it's quite, it's a horrible word, this, but it's quite bipolar, I think, some of the things, and real plot devices. And I think when you talk about like Darth Vader and Obi-Wan, is when you watch a film, that's what I was getting at, sorry, David said like Rocky 4, and I would probably say Rocky 3 is my favourite. I don't know if you guys have ever seen them. They're all very old films now. But
I've seen the first Rocky.
I've seen Rocky 1 and I saw Rocky Balboa, but I don't think I've seen the in-betweens.
So you're missing the best ones, actually, mate. That's the disgrace. But they're my favourite films, Rocky. I've actually got Rocky over my shoulder here, so on the wall. So basically, in Rocky 3, he's like the champ. He's having all these fights, but they're handpicked. and he goes up against someone who can basically, he doesn't realise he's from the streets. Mr. T, basically, who was out of the A-team. He was absolutely horrible. He's got that eye of the tiger. He's got nothing to lose, and he levers Rocky. And this film's only 90 minutes long, and Rocky needs Apollo Creed, who's his great nemesis, because you've seen the first one. He becomes his coach with Apollo's coach, and they train Rocky to get it back, to get that eye of the tiger, because he's become too flash, too comfortable. I know Obi-Wan's not been living in a palace or anything. It's not like he's just been sat there, eating chicken all day or whatever, and all this sort of thing, and drinking wine. But it's like, you're right, they don't do a great... So we've got a 90-minute film does a better description of a redemption story of someone getting their powers back, shall we say. And some of the MCU stuff does that as well. I love Superman too. He gives up his powers in my favourite superhero film. He gives up his powers in one scene, gets levered in a truck stop, sees General Zod on the telly, and within 10 minutes, he's going back to get his powers back. And that storytelling in 15 minutes is one of the most powerful things I've ever seen in a superhero movie, in my opinion. I absolutely love that. And then he turns up and it's like, you care to step outside, General, and all you have it's a terrible fight. But the whole dynamic of it is brilliant. So it's strange, and you're right, Mike, that in 5 hours worth of TV, they've done such a shit job of Obi-Wan going from downtrodden, I'm a mouse, I don't want any conflict, I just don't want it, I'm going to get levered, to oh, hang on a minute, I can all of a sudden take out the Grand Canyon and just throw it at Darth Vader. So if you take it like that, ridiculous. But I must admit, I was absolutely fanboying out, because the Jedi are not, in the films, they're not depicted great, really, because they're very defensive. So this was actually a Jedi being offensive, other than Kylo Ren and, Ben Kenobi, I suppose, Ben Solo, sorry, at the end, there's a little bit of that, but they're not an offensive, I think they're defensive. It's that how they work, so they're not about attacking people. So I did love the fact that Obi-Wan was like, fuck that, let's go. But if you take a step back, none of it should work because it's silly. But yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed that fight, I must admit.
Yeah, I agree completely. It's one of those. I feel like he should have done what he did with Rey. Basically, all I want to see is him maybe on that ship with Leia and the group of them, sat cross-legged and being like trying to center himself, and you kind of hear all the music kind of fizz out, and it's just, you hear like a sort of noise, and he's just kind of thinking, and then he's just like, he connects and he hears Qui-Gon's voice just go, Obi-Wan, and he kind of opens his eyes and you hear like a sort of noise. Yeah. And then he's like, from then his whole posture is really calm, and he's, like when, as you mentioned, when Kylo becomes Ben, kudos to Adam Driver, because when you see Ben Solo, he literally walks differently, he talks differently, he's a physically different thing, just like, well, you haven't seen Moon Knight yet, have you, Chris?
No.
Well, you need to, because the acting in that alone is phenomenal. But yeah, there's parts of that as well which have something similar in it. So it's like there's parts where I feel like Kenobi should have done that. It should have been a clear moment of him kind of connecting more with the Force. But aside from that, I did really enjoy it. And obviously the dialogue exchange as well, there's a bit I've written down, which was when they were fighting, Obi-Wan says, I'm sorry to Anakin, to Vader. And then he says, you didn't kill him, I did. And I was like, that's so good, that's so brilliant. And then obviously when Kenobi leaves him, he says, goodbye, Darth. And that's it is one of those things with Star Wars, it's not dissimilar to Rogue One, where it's kind of somewhat plot hole filling, because Obi-Wan or Ben or Obi-Wan, whatever, in episode 4 calls Darth Vader Darth. And it's like, well, Darth is a title, not a name. So they're like, oh no, that wasn't a plot error. Kenobi just does that. And it's like, okay, I guess. It's little bits like that, which I'm like, I like. And I'm also like, that feels not fan servicey, but I mean, if I'd have made it, I would have probably done the same, to be honest. And I did like when Leia speaks to Kenobi and he says, if you communicate with me, you have to be you have to be clever about it. You have to keep it secret. And that's why I really like that line, because I think that works, because then when Leia says, you helped my father in the Clone Wars, it's a bit more like, although I think she still says Kenobi, so it does somewhat undo it.
I think she says Obi-Wan Kenobi, doesn't she?
Yeah. Obi-Wan Kenobi.
You may only hope.
Yeah. So it's like, well, I mean, it doesn't really explain how his face was plastered over every single bounty hunter board on the planet. Or in the galaxy in episode 2 or 3. And then suddenly it's just like, oh, he's maybe gone.
It's fine. Yeah, and I think you're right. That dialogue about Darth I think looking at episode 4, that plays into when he tells Luke about, an evil Jedi, named Darth Vader killed your father sort of thing. And not because we don't know at that point until Empire Strikes Back that he's his dad, do we? So I think that probably justifies the fact that Obi-Wan can separate the two people, if that makes sense. So I sort of get that dialogue more than anything, but there's a few bits, Mike. I do think you're right. I think what should have happened is, I'm going to reference Rocky again. So Rocky 5 is a shit film, but it's one of my favourite Rocky films because it has a great scene where Mickey's coach he imagines him coming back, giving him a pep talk. He's not really fighting. He's got brain damage and he's lost everything. And he has to have a fight at the end of the movie on a street fight. And he gets knocked out and gets knocked over and you think he's out. And then all of a sudden Mickey comes and starts talking. He's like, get up, you're the champ, and all this stuff. I can recite that one. I always tear up when I watch that. It's ridiculous, I know. But that's when I think Qui-Gon could have come. You're right, Mike. He's under the cosh. He's been looking for him in every episode. And it would have been perfect for him to go, Obi-Wan, or whatever. Give him that kick up the arse that he needed. But no, we get Qui-Gon at the end when he's just fucking fluffing him up, going, oh, come this way, let's have a fucking cup of tea and everything. I didn't think that he deserved to be in it before then. That would have made a perfect way for Obi-Wan to just go, oh shit, a bit like Neo in The Matrix, where all of a sudden he realizes he's the one.
Yeah.
And he's having that fight scene at the train station and then on the subway, and all of a sudden he's like, hang on a minute, I can give this guy as good as I get. That sort of thing. That, for me, I love stuff like that. I would have been absolutely fanboying over that bit.
Yeah, completely. And everyone knew Qui-Gon was going to be in it. But then when he was, you were like, oh, 2 lines of dialogue. I was like,
he's literally in it at the last fucking second.
Yeah, and I'm just...
And it's after the hello there.
Which I was very happy. When he said hello there, I was like, yes! He said the line!
Mike and I just looked at each other. We were like...
I love
that. I did love that.
Yeah, anytime I hear any version of Obi-Wan saying hello there just kills me. In the Lego Holiday Special, there's a bit where the 3 Kenobis talk and they all say hello there in unison. And it's just like, I was absolutely made. But yeah, with Qui-Gon and stuff, there's the book, a certain point of view and stuff. And in that, there's a Kenobi story about Obi-Wan before he goes to talk to Luke. And he's talking to Qui-Gon. And they have like a full-length conversation and stuff. So everyone who read those books knows that Qui-Gon was going to be in it. And because they mentioned Qui-Gon, it's like, okay, he's definitely going to be here.
It was even in the, introduction to Kenobi, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. It was like literally Yoda said, I'm going to teach you how to commune with Qui-Gon and stuff, blah, blah, blah. And then when he's actually in it, you're just like, what are you doing?
I'm holding my nose.
You look weird.
Okay, I'm sorry, but my nose is itchy. I'm sorry, everyone. I've got hay fever. I'm trying not to sneeze.
That's fine. I'm the same. I'll edit that out anyway. So, it's just a bit annoying that Qui-Gon himself was barely in it. Because Liam Neeson put on all the garbs and he did all the effort and all that stuff. And you're like, you give him 1 line of dialogue and you're like, I wanted him to actually have a conversation or be like, oh, come with me and I'll teach you the ways of the Force. I'll teach you how to live forever. Some sort of line other than been waiting here ages. Come on then. Let's go through the forest, go through the desert and these canyon. And you're like, I'm interested. I want to know. And I was hoping maybe there'd be a little post-credit scene. No, nothing like that. No. And I feel that a little bit the same about Palpatine. I was like, oh, cool. Ian McDiarmid's in it. And I was like, I suspected that when he was at Star Wars Celebration. And I was like, cool. But was him talking to Vader? Did that actually mean anything to the plot? Or was it more like, well, we're kind of at the end of the episode. Let's do a Lord of the Rings. Let's just have 5 endings. Okay, we see Leia. Okay, well, that's the ending, that one. Oh, and he talks to Luke and says hello there. That's the ending. Oh, and he talks to Qui-Gon. That's the ending there. Yeah. Oh, and Vader talks to Palpatine. And you're like, do all these really, I'm happy, and there's the 2 parts of me. There's the part of me that's like, yeah, seeing Qui-Gon again, and Palpatine, yeah, woo. And then there's other part of me that's like, but did the Palpatine discussion especially, did that actually add anything?
No, you know what? I think for me, the one thing I got was the music. I wanted the music, the Imperial March. I wanted that all the way through. When he was dragging them people, I said it on our episode, and I said he should have had that music. I think it should have been dead slow, dead eerie, dead the way he was pulling them people along. That would have been perfect. But I did think it worked this at the end. But again, obviously he shots at B&M's because he's got an unlimited number of helmets, because the scene before, his head's nearly been melted. The helmet's gone. He sat there with a new shiny one on, like he's waxed it up. So that was a bit strange, because I was hoping we'd almost get Revenge of the Sith levels of recovery. But there isn't any recovery. He's just sat there going, I will, I feel conflict. There is no conflict, and then the music kicks in. that was a weird payoff, I thought. I would have preferred for him to have not necessarily get his whole body rebuilt like we saw in Revenge of the Sith when we get the breathing and that, but some sort of struggle, because he's just been had his arse kicked by Obi-Wan again. And the one positive I would say watching it all, and there is positive, definitely, is I did like the fact that Obi-Wan physically couldn't match him, but he knew that he still had that rage, like you said, Mike, that Anakin rage, because he was completely blindsided. The Inquisitor kept saying to him, we need to go after these. We can destroy all this thing. And he's like, no, we go for Obi-Wan. And the Inquisitor's like, well, I can't really argue with him because he's probably going to choke me. You know what I mean? So, and that happened all the way through, didn't it? The movie He knew that he was only after Obi-Wan. He didn't, obviously he was protecting Leia. His daughter's on the ship and he still doesn't twig because he's so, I think they get round that, because I asked you that last time, is his wanton rage and his complete tunnel vision to get Obi-Wan so that's where the conflict comes in, I think.
Yeah, I think they built Vader's character really well in this show, a lot more than I thought they would. And I love seeing Vader without his helmet on and stuff.
Yeah.
And there's a scene that happens in another show that is not dissimilar to that. I won't spoil it, but it's one of my favourite moments in all of Star Wars. And it's, I really like the show, and Vader in it especially, I think, was definitely one of the highlights. It's one of those things, Vader and Obi-Wan and the actress who played Leia were all phenomenal. Yes. They were all so good, but there's just some in-between that it wasn't as strong, and there are just little plot inconsistencies. Like when Vader said to the Grand Inquisitor and the ship, he's like, wait here, I'm going to go down there by myself. And they're like, okay, we'll wait here. And then goes planet side, and then Obi-Wan flies off the planet, and the Star Destroyer is nowhere to be seen at all. And you're like, but surely would the Star Destroyer not try and stop him? Would they not mention? There should have been a communication thing, which was Vader coming to the Grand Inquisitor saying, you need to come to get me. And you watch the Star Destroyer drop on one side of the planet and Obi-Wan fly off on the other side. I know it's easier to say with hindsight, but Star Wars has it occasionally, with especially Disney Star Wars, where you just add in 2 lines of dialogue, 5 extra seconds of footage, and it completely fixes so many plot details. And that's one of the things that I was more critical of, episodes 4 and 5 of this, where it was just like, oh, he's in a coat. And you're like, all they need to say was, I'm going to do a force ability that I've only done once or twice before, where I mask myself, and it kind of makes everyone not look at us. It keeps us in everyone's peripherals. And it really will be helpful because all the stormtroopers are masked. It'd be easy for them to not really notice us. Just a line like that, because Jedi are stealthy. Jedi can be. And you saw Kenobi doing that in the earlier of the episode. And if she was like, how did you break in? And he goes, the Jedi have got powers like, force masking. People can't sense me. You don't see me in your peripheral. Something like that. And you'd be cool. New force power. It makes sense in the plot. It doesn't cause any plot holes. And it makes the coat scene make slightly more sense.
Yes.
It's just little things like that, really. What about you, Megan? What do you have any sort of... You look at you shaking your head at me. You can talk even though you've got a blocked up nose. It's okay.
I'm literally just trying everything to not cough or sneeze.
Well, you just got to press the space bar and then it will pause it.
Yes, Mike. However, if you're speaking, I can't just pause the space bar because then that would just cut out your audio.
I think people would like that. Right, Michael's done. Press the button.
What?
Jesus Christ. Any general criticisms or nitpicks of the show itself, like things they could have added or didn't have?
I just feel like it felt a bit rushed. I just feel like it needed to be spread out longer.
Right.
Like even if they had not necessarily 10 episodes, but they just needed for certain character developments, they just needed a little bit more time. It's again, I'm just going to link it back to Daenerys.
Yeah.
It's just the same thing where it just was one thing and then it straight away was another thing. That's probably my main critique, is that they probably just needed a little bit more time to develop some of those characters. I think Reva could have been a lot better had she had more time to have that character development. And the same as you guys have said about Obi-Wan, suddenly not being able to do anything to them being able to, as Chris put it, throw the Grand Canyon at Darth Vader. So, that would be my main thing. It's just that it just needs a little bit more time.
Yeah, and the injuries, as Chris said as well, it's one of those things where it's like, oh yeah, Reva got stabbed in the stomach.
Well, and
just left there for no reason at all.
Obi-Wan literally got dragged through fire and was completely burned.
But he was put him back to released. You see him in the next episode recovering in Bacta.
God.
No, but that part is the only bit.
Sorry.
Well, that's the only bit where I'm like, okay, fair enough.
I know everything about
I watched the episode once like you did. I haven't even rewatched any of these episodes. But
I barely even remember the one that we literally just finished watching.
But like with Reva, it was just like, she got stabbed in the stomach. And how she survive, as Chris said, she put a rag on it and then just limps everywhere.
That's how you heal.
Okay, no. You could have seen her open up one of those crates nearby and find some Bacta spray or something. Because Bacta spray exists in canon. I think it might be Rogue One or Solo or something. But yeah, so we've got done some criticisms and things and sort of highlights of the whole series. So Chris, why don't you tell us, if you had one favourite moment of the series, what would that have been? I
would have said up to this point when Darth Vader was dragging the village and everyone, and that was menacing, horrible Darth Vader. You've said loads of times, Mike, about the comic runs, the way he just decimates, towns, everything. He's just a horrible person. And we got that. Obviously, we alluded to that in the last, the Kylo Ren trilogy, I suppose. That's what I like to call it because he's the best character. When he kills everyone at the temple and all that. So we get a similar thing with this as well, with Anakin. Obviously, we know that from the movies. But I think the fight at the end, the fight was just great, no matter what I think of the show. And I do think that what Megan said about it was seem rushed. It almost feels like, I don't want to offend anyone because I know everyone on Comics Emotion loves DC and that, but that fucking Zack Snyder movement that went on about, let's just edit a film so we can try and get it into an order where it's actually good. There was a lot of baggage with Zack Snyder, so I know that there was a reason, and I totally understand why he jumped off that project. So no, I would never judge anyone on that. He had to do what he had to do. But I think, and there was a reason, and I get it, but I think, and it was a good film, to be fair, the edited version, it was actually a lot better than the original one. But this feels like I would have been more happy if this had been a movie, having watched this.
Yes.
And there was a few bits I'd want in, like Qui-Gon and everything, the redemption thing. But this almost feels like we have got a movie before it's finished on the cutting room floor and they've knocked it down to 2 hours, if that makes sense. Because there's plenty of stuff they could have done in this, clipped it as one movie, and I think it would have been excellent. And there's loads of stuff we just did not need at all. But there was some great stuff. But the fight was brilliant. I love the fact that Obi-Wan was on the offensive and he nailed Darth Vader and he used the power to push him back a few times. And then, stupid quote on Omega, but you're right, the Grand Canyon just flew at him and he took him out. So I did love that, and I thought that was excellent. And I did like the hello there, that was brilliant. I was smiling from ear to ear, Mike. So the fan service stuff was great, and the Imperial March at the end was excellent. I was like, thank God they've done it at an appropriate time. So yeah, I enjoyed it, but there is criticism definitely.
What you've said about the movie, I was actually going to ask the question of, because it started off as a movie.
Yeah.
And then what happened was Solo did really badly, and then they're like, maybe no one wants to watch Star Wars movies. It's like, no. No one wants to watch a Star Wars movie about Solo that's a prequel 6 months after you release The Last Jedi, which is the most divisive Star Wars film to ever exist.
Yes.
There's people who are Star Wars fans like I am, or Megan, or lower, like in the tiers of how much content you consume. No consistency. Some of my mates and some people I know are like, Last Jedi is one of the best Star Wars films.
I absolutely hate it.
And you despise it. But so it's one of those things where it's really, really divisive as a film. And they went, yeah, let's release a Solo film where every character in it, bar two, who are going to die, are literally two characters. It's all characters you know. Let's just have that 6 months after Last Jedi, and then have a year and a half of no new Star Wars content, and then we wonder why the film did badly. And it's like, we know why. Everyone was fucking sick of it. Everyone needed a break. And then they're like, let's not make movies anymore. Scrap the Boba Fett movie. Let's make, a series, which is literally, basically it feels like a movie. And they're like, oh shit, we don't have enough content. Let's just chuck 2 Mandalorian episodes in there. And it's like,
right, this is the thing. Like, Boba Fett felt like there was too much content, and it felt like just
stretched,
lengthy and stretched. And then this one feels like everything's really rushed. It's just like they can't seem to get the sweet spot.
Well, this feels like, I think, I think if we combine the kind of things you two both said, Megan said she wanted more flashed out things, and Chris said it feels unfinished. It should have been a movie. And I think the problem was, where this was a movie, they kind of, the parts about Kenobi and Vader, they stretched out to the right degree. I think all of those parts worked really well. But they realised when they did that, there's probably only about 4 hours of content, maybe 3.5. And they're like, this is too long for a movie, too short for a series. I don't think it would have been. I think it'd been great for a series. But instead they were like, right, we need to add more in. And the bits they've added in, the bits with the other characters aside from Kenobi and Darth Vader, those are the weakest part. And those are the bits that feel like they haven't fully finished them, because they feel like it sounds like someone's like broken a vase and they fixed it and then they're just plugging all the cracks, with this bits, and you're like, you haven't really finished it, although it's working. And that's kind of how it feels. And I feel like, it should have been one whole movie or a longer series. But what about you, Meg? What were your sort of highlights of this?
I really liked the bit where Obi-Wan was other way around. Darth Vader was dragging Obi-Wan through the fire.
Yeah.
I felt like that was a good, throwback. I liked in this episode when Leia puts on the thing that's been the holster that's been given to her from the woman that died. I really liked her character.
Tala was amazing.
Yeah, she was.
She should not have died. She should have been in the Andor series.
Well, this is the thing. They kill off her, and then they don't kill off Reva, who's like a really fucking shit bland character.
Yeah.
And Tala had so much more to her.
She had almost the same plot, didn't she? Tala was an Imperial officer to begin with. She decided to change her ways and actually have a redemption that meant something, that impacted the plot. She was a flushed out character. She had a droid companion. All these cool elements. She was I can't wait to see her in the Andor series. And then she dies. And you're like, oh, come on. And then Reva doesn't get killed. And you're like, I
don't necessarily want her to die. I think I'll be more annoyed if there isn't some sort of further thing with her.
Yeah.
If that's it, and that's all that she was in it for, it's kind of like, really? Really? But I also really liked I liked the bit in this episode where Leia's wearing the holster, and then she looks like grown-up Leia. She's dressed like grown-up Leia.
Yeah.
I was like, okay. That's her. There she goes. She's wearing the boots and everything. That's what she looks like.
Yeah.
It was a nice little nod to the episode 4.
I think all the Leia stuff was amazing. I think apart from that running scene, I think in the first or second episode, which got critiqued quite a bit online, where she's somehow running through the forest and outmaneuvering 3 or 4 mercenaries, bounty hunters, whatever you want to call them, flee from Red Hot Chili Peppers. When that happens, it's like, you're a bit like, oh, this is a bit silly. It feels a bit cartoonish. Yeah. But aside from that, she does such a good job. And a bit of trivia I found out is that Carrie Fisher used to have a pet bird, and the bird was called Lola. So Leia's little droid is called Lola, and it's like a little bird thing. I thought that was really sweet. And it's like one of the biggest tragedies. Obviously, Carrie Fisher passing away was very sad, and she was so important. She's a spokesperson for mental health things, drug abuse, all kinds of stuff. But if she'd have met young Leia, she would have loved her. It would have been so cool because she just did such a good job of being Leia. And I think, some of my favourite moments were with Tala. I thought she was excellent. But yeah, Obi-Wan really, I thought Owen as well, the guy who played Owen, Joel Edgerton, who was also, he's in loads of other stuff, but he was Owen in, episode 3, same as the actress who plays Beru. And I thought he did a great job as well. And I really liked their dynamic, and I liked his interactions with Obi-Wan. It really felt connected to episode 4. So I think the highlights, though, were for me the same as you, Chris. I wanted to see Obi-Wan and Anakin, Obi-Wan and Vader. And I loved the Anakin flashback. I really liked that in episode 5. I thought that was really cool for me, watching them fight, and you kind of learn that Vader doesn't learn anything. When Vader reached up and held the ship in place and pulled it down, you're like, he's so powerful. All these elements I really enjoyed. So I think everything with Obi-Wan and Anakin, I loved. Even Obi-Wan, when he's breaking into the fortress, excluding the coat bit, when he holds back the water with the cracking glass, I was like, any over-the-top force powers, I'm here for. I love them. Yeah. Apart from Palpatine and The Rise of Skywalker, where he's just shooting a lightning beam in the sky. It's just... But, no. Okay, so if we say... One of the questions I was going to say was about being a movie. So we've tackled that. We'll start to wrap up, but I want to ask, would you want a Vader series? Now, I'll say first, because obviously I've read... There's 3 Vader series of comics, plus a couple of miniseries as well. And then he does appear in Star Wars Rebels a little bit as well. So there are, and he also appears in, minor spoiler for Jedi Fallen Order, but you should know by now, he appears in that, and he's amazing in that.
As well.
Yeah.
Sorry? In the Clone Wars series.
Oh yeah, he does appear in Clone Wars very, very briefly. But Rebels is the main thing I was thinking of. But he appears in other content. So we do have, there's quite a lot of Vader-centric content. Before this show, and even when Hayden Christensen was announced, I was like, I want loads of flashbacks. I don't know how I feel about a Vader Obi-Wan battle again. And I don't just want to see the same thing as I've seen in the comics. How much Vader do I really want? As soon as I see him on screen, as soon as he's there, fucking shit up. As soon as, like in Rogue One, as soon as he's doing that, it's like, Abso-fucking-lutely. I love it. More. So for me, initially, I was like, I don't want a Vader series. And now I'm like, I just want to see Vader left, right and centre, hunting down Jedi and killing all of them. That's what I would love to see that. Although I have a worry that if they did that, they would make Vader either too weak of a character or, they take the mystery away, which they have done quite a lot with
I think
Vader.
the problem is with that is that for Vader to be true Vader, it wouldn't be appropriate for kids.
Yeah.
Which is going to be the vast majority of people that are going to be watching it. If it's going to be true Vader, it's going to have to be like at least a 15, realistically.
Yeah.
For it to actually work properly. Otherwise, it's just going to be more of the Vader that we've seen, I think.
Yeah. Because in the dark bits we've seen of him in Rogue One and in episode 3 of the Kenobi show, it was that borderline, and it was like, if you have 1 second longer of badass brutal Vader, it will be too much for people. That neck snap, I don't know how they got that in. I have no idea how. I'm so happy for it. Don't know how they managed to convince Disney to be like, let's put that in and not cut away. You should have seen a shadow or something. I would have argued if I was like a Disney producer or something. But
that's the thing, is like in that episode you have neck snap and you've also got him putting like Kenobi into the fire.
Burning someone alive.
Literally burning someone alive.
Yes.
Like you can't, if they're going to make a whole series of that, it has to be a higher age rating. Because like, obviously one of the main things about Star Wars is there's not much gore. Like that's probably how they get away with the vast majority of it, is there's no blood. Whereas if you think of like, because that kind of level of stuff makes me think of Daredevil.
Oh yeah.
Like with the amount of like violence is kind of Daredevil level stuff, but they wouldn't be able to get away with doing Vader stuff like that. I think it's too, especially from Disney.
What do you think, Chris? Would you want to see a Vader series?
Well, this is why me and Megan are spirit animals, man. Because she stole my thunder, because I was going to say, at some point, they've got to stop being fucking soft asses and go with a proper R-rated. They could put it on Star, because that's still part of Disney. That's the adult one, and you have the filter on your Disney Plus. Because I have all my family using it, and my brother's father-in-law uses it, and was only under 12 or something. So he's like, I can't see anything, because I've got my brother's YouTube Premium, so he's got my Disney Plus and stuff, and his wife and his father-in-law. So I honestly agree with Megan completely. He's absolute nut job. The only problem is there's not any payoff. There's no hero side to it, because if you're doing a true Darth Vader thing, I just want him fucking maiming everyone, heads off, blood, just taking everyone out. No conscience, no nothing, no second guessing himself, no worrying about, this conflict in you. No, he just goes and just kills every fucker. But a bit like a horror movie. A bit like what we've just seen with, if I don't know if you have seen it, Doctor Strange. I was really surprised by the maniacal side, spoilers everyone, of Wanda. And it was like a horror movie. And I hate horror movies, but I really, really enjoyed it, because I was like, she was just relentless. And I think if you could have heroes, but ultimately I would love if the heroes just got taken out in the 6th episode. Just
not dissimilar to Rogue One.
Yes, yeah. Rogue One's a great movie, and the end bit, the payoff to get the plans. Obviously, we know what happens. That scene is iconic, because I didn't know. I always go to the midnight launch of all the Star Wars, as they've been open since The Force Awakens. And you made a great point before, Mike, and I didn't want to cut you off. Was I've been to all of them, so I went to Solo, and when we went to The Last Jedi, it was heaving. We had stormtroopers, Ewoks. We had fucking Darth Maul there. We had everything, all different people dressed up, brilliant cosplaying, and just genuinely loads of people. But when it came to Solo, we went to we always just got to the pub before, make sure we were all awake, because I think on The Last Jedi I was lagging because I'm up so early for work. So I tried to have a kip in the day and I hadn't. And we got to about 11:30. We were expecting to be hammered. And there was no one there. And it was the fatigue of one Last Jedi got received badly, which I actually quite like it. But I love Last Jedi. Yeah, I do like it. I love the Snoke room. I love that room.
I think that's some of the best
I absolutely love it. The hand and everything. I love that scene. I watch it all the time on YouTube. But I did enjoy the film. But when we went to watch Solo, and I didn't come out of Solo that's pretty shit, really. And we had I got all these, they were giving away stuff. There's so much merchandise because no one turned up. We ended up fucking shitloads of Solo placemats. I had them for ages. I've thrown them now. I'd like all the shit from the movie. But then I did watch it again coming back from Vegas in 2018, I think November, and I watched it on the plane, and I really enjoyed it the second time around. It might be 19 actually I watched, but whenever it came out, I watched it a few months later, and I actually enjoyed it more the second time. So I thought it stood up better than when I first went to the cinema. But you're right, I just think he needs to be a fucking maniac, an absolute psycho, kill every fucker, no conscience, just R-rated or nothing. But like you both said, and you're right, it might take the mystique away. There has to be no fault in his character. He's just got to be driven from this point on. Maybe some flashbacks from this series showing where his weaknesses. He's trying to analyse how he got beat by Obi-Wan again, because he's not got that. He's still got that sort of kill switch where he's so, as I said, tunnel vision, and he's learning not to have that tunnel vision and be a bit more calmer and pick his fights. But I would love him just to take everyone out. I don't know whether they will. I don't know whether he's... The sad thing is he might end up being a bit like fucking Batfleck, where he ends up like Ben Affleck in everyone else's films but his own, because I know it's a different context and different character, but there's just not something there. There's no real payoff to him being his own show, but I would love it. Personally, I would absolutely love it.
Yeah. I'd 100% watch it. I feel like, it's too... I think if they did a Vader movie, I think that would work really well. I think you could level out the gore ratio, that you could make it a 12A, a brutal 12A, like Doctor Strange was. I think you could do that. Yes. But I think with a series, it's why Moon Knight was like a 16 plus over here. So I think that's R rating technically in America, even though apart from 2 scenes in it, and I won't spoil it at all for you, Chris, but there's 2 scenes anyone listening will know where you see a fair amount of blood and you hear a quite gory thing happen. And, when you see the vials and there's blood on them.
Can't remember.
Okay. Well, there's a bit... Anyone else listening, it's episode 4 or 5. They're in a crypt and there's like organs inside jars and things. And apart from that, like there's a bit in the first episode where there's blood. There's not really any others. And I think they dropped the F-bomb twice. But it's just like... I didn't feel like it needed to be a 16 plus. And I'm like, I don't think Disney are ever going to push it. But if they did a Vader movie, it would be cool, but I think they'd have to do it right after episode 3. It'd have to be Vader struggling with the suit and him trying to fight people and somewhat losing because he's not used to the suit very much. But they kind of did that in the 2017 Charles Soule comics. So it'd have to be maybe an adaptation of that or a sequelish to that. This is the problem.
Part of me, I don't think they're going to make anything like that because they want to do new content. I think a lot of people are kind of, you said it, like it's all to do with the Skywalker saga.
Yeah.
Like...
Yes.
It would be nice to see something else at some point. Like,
yeah.
Because even with the shows that have come out, it's still within that kind of realm, isn't it?
Well, Mando is the only one, which is why I think it works so well.
And Boba Fett.
Boba Fett, yeah.
Boba Fett's difficult because he was part of that realm.
Yeah.
But it's set in the future. It's set at the same time as The Mandalorian, isn't it?
Yeah, but the show being called The Book of Boba Fett, it was quite unlikely they were going to.
But even then, it's got.
Yeah.
We've already done spoilers.
Okay, well, even then it's got Luke in it, hasn't it? Like,
yes.
So it's still part of that saga because it's got Luke Skywalker in it.
Well, that's the problem, and it is kind of feeding into that, which is why I always talk about this, the High Republic. But it's all in book and comic form at the moment. But they're doing an animated series called Young Jedi Adventures, but that's going to be like proper young. I think that's going to be even younger than Clone Wars. So I'm thinking that we've got the Acolyte coming out, which I think is going to be next year. That's
also got a plain one, haven't they?
Rogue Squadron keeps getting delayed and pushed back constantly, so I don't even know if it's even going to come out. Who knows?
Plain one.
Well, it's maybe
a ship one.
But it's a pilot. It was based on a pilot story. That was kind of the idea that Patty Jenkins did, who's the one who did the 2 Wonder Woman movies. Yeah. But it's like with the High Republic, they've got the opportunity to go back. But I think the Acolyte is going to be quite interesting because the Acolyte series comes out next year. It's set about 100 years, I think. They originally said 50, but I think they've pushed it to 100 years before the Skywalker saga. And it's like a dark side mystery thriller, is what they've described it as. So I think it's going to be, maybe Darth Plagueis is going to be in it, which is Palpatine's master, or his master, Darth Tenebrous. And it's going to be something about the Sith hiding from Jedi and having to kill Jedi off and stay mystery, that kind of thing, I suspect. And that would work quite well because all the characters bar Yoda or Yariel Poof or Jabba, apart from those and Maz Kanata, like a few handful of really old characters, is fresh. And I think that's what they're slowly doing. They're going there with the books first and the comics, and then they're slowly feeding... Because obviously, writing a book, they have to pay the writer and then pay for publishing it and that sort of stuff. But the amount of book cost to release compared to a Disney Star Wars movie is just completely different. So I'm thinking that they're slowly just going to go back, because there is some stuff in Legends that I've been reading, Darth Bane stuff, and it is brutal. Like, I'm listening to the audiobook and you hear the sound effects. You hear people's cartilage and their noses break and blood splurt out and, graphically describing blaster wounds and like blood kind of dripping out where it hasn't cauterized properly. There's some horrendous stuff. In one of the Darth Vader books, there's some Sith sorcery and someone hypnotizes someone, puts them under a spell. They see their own worst nightmares. They scratch their own eyes out. This is a Star Wars book. It is brutal as fuck, and it's amazing. But it was like, that scene I was listening to, I was like, jeez. And you can hear it. You can hear the person like screaming and clawing and stuff, and you're like, this is amazing. I want some of this in Star Wars now. But that's the problem with Disney. There's not a freedom yet. Maybe they will one day. Perhaps.
No, and I think you're right, is the fact that Darth Vader, Luke Skywalker, they are the most powerful people in this universe. So, at the end of Return of the Jedi, every man and his dog's having a fucking street party, aren't they? Because, in the edited version anyway, in the original they didn't. It was very maintained, small, but in the remastered ones, we got every fucking planet going. Even E.T. was getting in on the act. So it's nonsense. So that's the only thing I don't buy is how are they going to make someone as powerful as Darth Vader? Or I know we get Kylo Ren, but that story's been told. Even he wasn't as powerful as Darth Vader. So how we ended up going back to the Emperor. Now, obviously, he's not in there. Spoilers, he's out the game. So does someone else rise? Do we do it 100? Are you saying before Skywalker? That maybe they need to do it afterwards, 100 years afterwards or something, something just completely take the whole thing away. And there might be the odd reference to something, or that, lore said that, old folklore said there was this family and they were all fucked up, but he was incestuous and the brother kissed the sister, but it was really the dad was Darth Vader, just something stupid, but that's it. And it's just a mention, but then we get new characters completely. That's the only way I think you can break free from it, because it's very difficult to build a new world knowing that they're never going to be as powerful. Even the Mandalorian, I love the Mandalorian, but we all know he won't be a Luke Skywalker in a fight. No. You know what I mean? Like, he got absolutely fucking caned. So it's at a lower level. It's almost at that Daredevil level of the MCU, the street level fighting, where they're just not as good as Thanos. They're not as good as, like Thor or whatever. They're fighting at a different level. That's the only thing I would say about the Mandalorian and Boba Fett is they could pretty much get killed by a Jedi, but they're doing their own battles in their own will, which is great. And Mandalorian was so fresh. I love that series, but I'm going to find it really difficult to buy into someone coming along and being an equivalent of Kylo Ren or Darth Vader and then investing in another load of heroes.
Yeah, that is the problem. I agree. And I think, it was next Star Wars stuff. We've got Andor coming out. We've got the animated show Bad Batch Series 2, which I'm excited about because that focuses on the clones. So that's kind of its own little side thing. The Andor series is going to be a prequel series, but it's going to be a dark rebellion series, and there's going to be 3 series of that, and each series is going to have 12 episodes, so maybe that will feel less rushed. It's been in production for like 5+ years, who knows? But yeah, I think as everyone I talk to, whether they're a fan like I am, consumes almost all Star Wars content, or a fan more like yourselves, which is, you watch most of the series and the movies.
Yeah.
Any fan is welcome to clarify to Star Wars for me, whether you've only seen a couple of films or you've seen them all, whatever. But everyone I talk to is saying, we're kind of getting fatigued. We're kind of done with the Skywalker saga. Hopefully in a few years' time, we'll go to a new place. That's, I think, what the kind of gist is. But we'll wrap up here now. So, thank you both for coming on. It's been absolutely delightful speaking with you both, especially Megan, where you were in the start, the middle, and the end, as people are very excited about. And we will be doing an Andor show and stuff in the future. I will say, I'll let people say goodbye and plug the stuff as well. But when we do the Andor show, because it's going to be 12 episodes, I think I'm probably going to do a thing where we'll do an Andor discussion on the first episode and then the second, but then just do every other one from there, because it's a lot of work for me. Yeah. Or maybe we'll do different hosts, I don't know, but it might just be good just to do every other episode and then kind of talk about 2 at a time. I don't know. We'll figure it out. Cool. But yeah, Star Wars shows, and then there's the Ahsoka series coming out next year, and obviously Andor this year, and then there's a few other bits and pieces kind of floating around. Mando Series 3, I think, is out at the end of this year or start next year. So there will be plenty of other times to discuss many elements of Star Wars. And there's one last thing about Obi-Wan that I forgot to mention. That was one of my top tier moments, was when Obi-Wan, when he starts fighting Vader and he goes to the stance and he holds his lightsaber back and puts his hand out like that. He does it in Revenge of the Sith before he fights Grievous. He does it numerous times in lots of series, and I absolutely love it. So, Chris, please, any final thoughts you want to say, and also plug your stuff.
Oh, thank you. No, thanks for both of you as well. It's always great speaking to you. I've enjoyed this. I've enjoyed watching it. It's been good fun. Really has been good fun. And just adds to sort of the child in me loving Star Wars, even though we've critiqued stuff. It's all done from a perspective of love, definitely. Now, if you're into Love Island, and I know everyone who listens to this podcast is into Love Island, me and David do a podcast. Now, everyone knows us from the VHS Strikes Back. So if you want to get over there and listen to us talk about movies and absolutely stitch each other up, we're on that podcast. The Comics in Motion Network, obviously, loads of great podcasts and shows on it. Mike's great show, Star Wars Comics in Canon, absolutely amazing. You know, so much work goes into it and really, really good. And we love the fact that so many people are on the channel. It's great. It's really good. Thank you. But Chris and Dave's reality cast is the one, and it's the place to be this summer, guys. Find us on all podcasts, catching apps. We're covering Love Island every day, even though we said we wouldn't cover it every day. Dave hates me at the moment because we're nearly 3 weeks in and we're doing a daily podcast. And it's going well. So Chris and Dave's Reality TV cast on Facebook and CD Reality cast everywhere else. And that is ridiculous that I'm actually plugging that on Comics in Motion for the first time properly. But there you go.
Yeah, I can't say I watch that, but I know that of all the podcasts yourselves have done, we don't discuss numbers here. It's not gentlemanly to do so, but that you get a bigger audience by quite a lot from your reality cast than you do for all your other projects. And it's funny, you guys have been on BBC Berkshire to talk about it and all kinds of crazy stuff. It's like, it's amazing that you managed to do that, but it's also like having to watch as much Love Island as you have to watch to achieve that. Yeah, I'm good. And
it is, you're right, it's ungentlemanly to, because when we'll put it privately and say we've hit this, not to boast or anything, but it's more an achievement. But you're right, Mike, it's literally the one that we put no effort into other than watch a show, and all the others we want to be so successful, which they are, and we get great numbers in that, but that one is fucking nuts. So, but there you go. I don't know what more to say. It's ridiculous, but there you go.
Yeah, if you're into reality TV and Love Island and all that sort of nonsense, go check it out. I'll put a link in the description as well.
And, don't have to, Mike.
I will. Don't you worry. I was complimented the other day for how my show notes always have the information that people ask about now. And now that someone said that to me, I appreciate it muchly, but now I feel compelled. I have to make sure the show notes are up to scratch. Megan, have you posted anything on your Instagram recently?
No, it's not been a priority for me, to be honest. So I'm not really that interesting. The last time I posted on there was
May.
It was when we got the house, so the 7th of May is the last time I posted
We're busy. Megan will get back on it soon.
On my Instagram.
Should I say about what we're getting soon, or do you not want me to say it?
You can say it if you want.
Okay, we're getting a puppy soon.
We're getting a puppy!
Oh, nice.
So,
nice.
it will be 4 weeks.
23rd of July is when we're getting the pup.
I wasn't going to say the exact date, but yes.
23rd of July is when we're getting the pup.
At the end of July, we're getting a cockapoo puppy, and we went and met her, put a deposit down. She could
Leia?
Willow.
No. She's called Leia? No,
my niece is called Leia.
She's going to be called Willow from Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
But Megan is only on season 6.
I haven't finished watching Buffy.
She hasn't got to any of the finale parts yet of that sort of stuff. But yeah, so when we inevitably get a dog, then you'll probably see Megan's Instagram light up again. And she'll be on the 6 weeks holidays, so she'll have plenty of time to post.
I think the Instagram will probably start to play up a bit now that I've got a little bit more time when we're not in the process of moving.
Literally, all we're doing is going to work, moving stuff from the flat to the house, unpacking boxes, painting, decorating stuff, and podcasting. That is literally all we've barely watched any TV series apart from the ones for podcasting.
Yeah.
It's been
loads of the kids at work have been like, "Ma'am, have you gone to see the new Jurassic World film yet?" And I'm like, "No, I haven't had a chance. Like, at what point do you think I've gone to see this movie?" Like, no, I haven't.
There's Jurassic Park. Obviously, I wanted to watch Top Gun because I've never seen it, and then Top Gun Maverick. And then I also wanted to watch the Nicolas Cage movie, The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. There's so many movies, and there's like a couple of horror films. Like there's the Nope film coming out by the guy who did Us and Get Out. I think Jordan Peele. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So there's loads of stuff we want to watch, but
that's why I've not been on Instagram. But you feel free to follow me. You just won't see much content at the moment.
Follow me on social media at Genuine Chit-Chat, and follow Megan on Instagram solely as Grits Gets Fit. And between the two, you will get content of the two of us. I did a post recently about our trip to the Isle of Wight, so it was fun. Find out if you're listening to this show, there's no excuse not to check out Star Wars Comics in Canon. New episodes out every single Saturday. You never have to have read a Star Wars book. You never have to have read a Star Wars comic. You don't even have to have seen all the Star Wars series. If you've just seen 6 of the main Star Wars movies, preferably all of them, all 11. But if you've seen the main 6, you can get into it. I go through the plot details. I talk about things so you don't need to pick up a book or a comic. Go through them, and I talk about the many connections to other content as well. Including species, planets, all that sort of tomfoolery. And obviously go over to Genuine Chit-Chat, because I occasionally have Star Wars conversations on there. And I spoke with Cavan Scott, Claudia Gray, Dominic Pace, people who've been in The Mandalorian or written Star Wars. Crazy stuff, and it's loads and loads of fun. But just thank you so much for listening, as always, friends, for this Kenobi discussion series. There is the Ms. Marvel series that's going on right now, hosted by Rhea and Tonya Todd, and myself and Megan will be appearing on that, I think, on the penultimate episode. So you can catch us there, as well as Star Wars Comics in Canon and Genuine Chit-Chat as well. But if you really want to hear loads from Megan, you can't find it on social media, you can't find it on Genuine Chit-Chat, it's not even on Comics in Motion. Go to patreon.com/Genuine Chit-Chat. You get access to a full feed full of hundreds of episodes of me and Megan talking about stuff. Road trips, Megan just railing me for saying stupid things, and TV shows, and all kinds of other great stuff. So check the show notes, friends. And just thank you for listening. Thank you, Chris, for joining us. And thank you for all our listeners out there. And may the Force be with you.
Hello there.
Which is 40 short stories from perspectives of, air quotes, side characters, and it tells the story of A New Hope, but from perspectives of everyone else that wasn't the main characters. And there's one about Obi-Wan before he goes to save Luke, before he finds Luke and things.
Oh, really?
Bless you.
You done?
I'm really sorry. I tried to pause.
You just have to press the space bar. That's all you got to do. Press the space bar and pause it. You've had to do it again.
God.
This is not the hay fever we're looking for, mate.
I was trying hard to hold my nose and not let it out, and then a pathetic little sneeze came out. Oh, God. I'm sorry.
You done?
Yeah.
You sure?
Yeah.
But she keeps pushing my leg away because I'm turning.
Yes, the reason I'm doing that is because Mike's leg hair is tickling my leg.
Anyway, ignoring that part. I'm going to have to edit this so much. Normally I can literally just go, save it as it is and release it and not even have to worry.
I've got such a tickly throat.
I'm going to have to make so many notes of this.
I know it's bad, Mike. We did it today. We did the reality one. And I filmed it at home today. Sorry, not today, yesterday. And what I'm doing is I'm going to one of the offices at work at 7:30. We've been recording, me and Dave. And then the internet shit. So it's fucking stopping and starting. And I'm like, oh, fuck. And a 20-minute podcast, which we're doing that Daily Love Island one, turns into nearly an hour of editing. And I'm like, what the fuck? But then the other days, it's fine. So I get it. The power of editing, Mike.
It's okay, Megan. I was only putting you I'm not actually annoyed at you because I often have to do this in my own podcast.
Guys, just leave it in. Just leave it in, and everyone can just listen to me cough and sneeze.
I don't want people hate listening to people cough and sneeze in a podcast.
Okay, well, hay fever's a thing, everyone. Yep. It affects the majority of the population, and the pollen count is particularly high at the moment.
Yes, but that doesn't mean anyone needs to hear people coughing on a podcast. If I hear any podcast, even if someone's ill,
well, that's what you get when I'm on the podcast. So
just today. Unless you're going to sneeze again.
I'm going to sneeze.
You're going to sneeze again.
Oh, God. Oh, God. This is awful.
You ready? Let's try again. Megan, so what was your highlights of Kenobi?